For 9 years, Kwon Tae-jun lived as the Impotent King, a mafia boss medically certified as sterile, deemed unworthy of his father's legacy. But when a desperate woman brings two 9-year-old boys with his unmistakable eyes to his hospital bed, the bullet in his chest becomes the least shocking thing trying to kill him. The first thing Tae-jun noticed when he woke up wasn't the pain. It was his father's voice in the hallway, discussing his funeral arrangements while he was still breathing. The flowers should be white chrysanthemums, traditional, dignified. Chairman Kwon's tone carried the same detachment he used when ordering office supplies. And if he survives, we'll need to expedite the transition. I've waited 9 years. That's enough patience. Tae-jun had learned something crucial over 37 years. Your father discussing your replacement while you're bleeding out teaches you exactly how much you're worth. The 3 bullets they'd pulled from his chest had been meant to kill him. His cousin's work probably, ambition wrapped in family loyalty. But lying here, listening to his father plan a future without him, Tae-jun wondered if the wrong person had pulled the trigger. The morphine made everything soft around the edges, but not soft enough to dull the familiar ache. 9 years ago, a medical report had stripped away his future in clinical language. Irreversible damage, zero viability, sterile. In the Kwon family, where bloodlines mattered more than blood itself, that diagnosis had transformed him from heir into expensive placeholder. The door opened. Winter walked in wearing a tailored suit. "You're awake." His father stood at the foot of the bed, studying him like a disappointing quarterly report. "The doctors give you a 70% chance. Better odds than I expected." Tae-jun's throat was raw. "Should I thank you for the vote of confidence?" "You should thank me for keeping you alive this long." The chairman sat, each movement precise as a knife cut. 9 years, Tae-jun. 9 years of watching you play at being a leader while knowing you can never truly become one. Do you know what that does to a legacy, to a family? The machines beeped steadily, measuring a heartbeat his father clearly found inconvenient. Tae-jun had spent his entire life chasing approval from this man, and somewhere around age 30, he'd realized he was chasing smoke. You can't catch something that was never really there. "I've kept the Seoul operations running," Tae-jun said quietly. "Expanded into Busan. Tripled revenue. Yes, you've been an excellent manager." His father's smile was winter frost on glass. "But managers are replaceable. Legacies are not. Your brother's wife is pregnant again, their 3rd child, while you—" He let the sentence hang, unfinished but devastating. "While you remain broken." The words didn't need to be spoken. They'd lived between them for 9 years. Heavy as tombstones, Tae-jun closed his eyes, remembering the day of the diagnosis. He'd been 28, preparing to take over the family business, engaged to a woman his father had chosen. Then came the tests. Routine, his father had said. Just a formality before marriage. The results had arrived in a manila envelope. Tae-jun could still remember his father's face when the doctor explained. Childhood illness, permanent damage, 0 chance of biological children. The engagement had ended within a week. The girl's family had been apologetic, but firm. Why invest in a tree that bears no fruit? "I'm not dead yet," Tae-jun said, opening his eyes. His father stood, adjusting cuffs that didn't need adjusting. "No, but you're not whole either. I'll give you time to recover. Then we discuss your transition to an advisory role. Tae-hyun will take over active operations." Advisory. The word tasted like ash. Be grateful I'm offering that much. Many fathers would have cut their losses years ago. The chairman moved toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and there's a situation developing. Nothing you need to worry about. Security will handle it." Something in his tone made Tae-jun's instincts, honed by years of reading threats in polite conversation, flare to life. "What situation?" "Nothing important. Just a ghost from your past making noise." His father's smile was cold. "You know how it is. Give people money to disappear, and eventually they come back asking for more." The door closed before Tae-jun could ask what he meant, but the words settled in his chest like ice. A ghost from your past. He had remarkably few of those. The Ice King didn't leave loose ends. 3 hours crawled by. Pain medication battled with consciousness. Taejun drifted between sleep and waking, his mind circling back to his father's words. Give people money to disappear. Who had his father paid off? And more importantly, why hadn't Taejun known about it? The door opened again, and this time everything changed. She stood in the doorway like a memory given form. Emily Anna. Older now, her mixed-race features etched with exhaustion that went bone deep. She wore jeans and a coat that had seen better years. Nothing like the neat uniform she'd worn 9 years ago, when she'd been just another invisible employee in his father's house. But her eyes, God, her eyes held something that made his damaged heart stutter against its stitches. The look of a cornered animal deciding whether to fight or flee. You, Taejun managed. His voice came out raw. Emily, she flinched at her name. Behind her, two of his father's security men materialized like shadows given weight. She didn't run. Maybe she was too tired. Maybe she'd run out of places to go. I'm sorry, she whispered. I swore I'd never come back. But he's left me no choice. Before Taejun could process her words, his father's voice cut through the room like silk-wrapped razor wire. Miss Anna, how persistent you are. The chairman entered, and Emily's whole body tensed. Taejun recognized that response. He'd seen it in men who owed debts they couldn't pay, in rivals who'd miscalculated their odds. It was the recognition that you were standing before someone who held all the power, and none of the mercy. I kept my end, Emily said, her voice shaking but steady. I disappeared. I stayed quiet. I asked for nothing. And yet here you are. His father's tone was almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. In my son's hospital room, making a scene, after I paid you quite generously to handle your little situation and vanish from our lives. Taejun's mind was racing, trying to connect pieces that didn't fit. Father, what is she talking about? Nothing that concerns you. The chairman didn't even look at him. Miss Anna had a brief employment in our household 9 years ago. Shortly after her departure, she became pregnant and attempted to claim you were responsible. An impossibility, obviously, given your condition. I gave her enough money to handle it discreetly and start fresh elsewhere. Instead, she chose to keep the children and has been a recurring nuisance ever since. The words hit like bullets his vest couldn't stop. Children? Plural? Emily's laugh cracked through the room like breaking glass. Nuisance? You've spent 9 years hunting me. Every apartment I rented, you had me evicted. Every job I got, you poisoned the references. Every visa I applied for, blocked. I took your blood money and ran because I was terrified, not because I agreed with you. Tears tracked down her face now, 9 years of fear spilling over. I just wanted to raise them in peace. But you couldn't allow that, could you? Couldn't risk them existing. Couldn't risk anyone knowing the great Chairman Kwan's sterile son had somehow... Enough! The chairman's voice cracked like a whip. But Emily didn't stop. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands, and immediately the security guards tensed, hands moving toward concealed weapons. Just pictures, she said quickly. That's all. Just let him see them. Then I'll leave. I'll disappear for real this time, I swear. What would you do if you discovered your entire life was built on a lie? Share your thoughts below. The chairman nodded once, and Emily turned her phone screen toward Taejun. Two boys stared back at him. 9 years old. Identical. They had her warm brown skin, her dark curls. But their eyes... Taejun stopped breathing. Those eyes were his. That exact shade of dark amber that marked every Kwan for 7 generations. Eyes that looked out from his own childhood photos, from his father's face, from portraits of ancestors dead 100 years. Unmistakable, undeniable, impossible. Meet your sons, Emily whispered. Minho and Junho. The machines around him screamed as his heart rate spiked. His father was speaking, something about forgeries, digital manipulation, desperate women, and their desperate lies. But Taejun couldn't hear anything except the roaring in his ears. 9 years, 9 birthdays, 9 first days of school, 9 years of being a father without knowing, 9 years of being told he was broken, when maybe, The only thing broken was the truth. Where are they? The question came out stripped of the Ice King's legendary control. Safe! Emily's eyes met his, and he saw steel beneath the fear. Hidden where he'll never find them, and they'll stay that way until he swears to leave us alone. This is absurd, the chairman said coldly. Tae-jun is sterile. The medical reports can be falsified. Tae-jun's voice was quiet, deadly quiet. Can't they, father? The silence that followed was the loudest sound in the room. The silence stretched like a wire pulled too tight, ready to snap. Chairman Kwan's face remained carved from stone. But Tae-jun had spent 37 years learning to read the micro-expressions his father thought he'd mastered. The slight tightening around his eyes, the almost imperceptible pause before speaking. These were the tells of a man whose carefully constructed world had just developed a crack. You're suggesting I falsified medical documents? His father's voice was silk over steel. That I would lie to my own son about something so fundamental? I'm not suggesting anything. Tae-jun forced himself upright despite the screaming pain in his chest. I'm asking a direct question. Were those medical reports accurate? Emily stepped forward, her fear eclipsed by something fiercer. Maternal fury, Tae-jun realized. The kind that made cornered animals dangerous. Of course they weren't accurate. You have 2 9-year-old sons who look exactly like you. How much more proof do you need? Proof can be manufactured, the chairman said smoothly. Photographs can be edited. Children can be coached. I've seen this scheme 1,000 times. Desperate women claiming paternity from wealthy men, hoping for a payout. I don't want your money, Emily's voice cracked. I never wanted it. I just wanted you to stop destroying my life every time I tried to build one. Tae-jun watched his father's face, searching for truth in a man who'd made an art form of deception. Why would you falsify the reports? What would you gain? Control, Emily answered before the chairman could. If you believed you were sterile, you'd never marry, never have legitimate heirs, which meant the family business would eventually pass to your brother. Isn't that right, Chairman Kwan? The accusation hung in the air like smoke from a gun. Tae-jun's mind raced backward, connecting dots he'd been too devastated to see 9 years ago. His father had insisted on the medical tests, had chosen the doctors personally, had delivered the results in a private meeting, no second opinions allowed. And within months, Tae-jun's engagement had dissolved. His marriage prospects had dried up, and his brother, previously the spare, had suddenly become far more valuable. That's insane, Tae-jun said, but his voice lacked conviction, because he'd learned something crucial about his father over the years. The man didn't make moves without strategy. Every action served a purpose. Is it? Emily pulled up another photo on her phone. This is Minho's medical record. Blood type AB negative. Rare, very rare. She swiped to another image. And here's Junho's. Same blood type. The same blood type as you, Tae-jun. I checked. AB negative. Tae-jun had donated blood once for a family member, back before the diagnosis. The nurse had commented on how rare it was. Less than 1% of the Korean population. His father's expression finally shifted. Just a flicker, but enough. Circumstantial, the chairman said. Blood types proved nothing definitive. Then let's do a DNA test. Emily's words were a challenge thrown down like a gauntlet. Right now, today. If I'm lying, I'll disappear forever. But if I'm telling the truth, she turned to Tae-jun, and her eyes held 9 years of exhaustion and hope. If I'm telling the truth, you have 2 sons who've spent their entire lives wondering why their father never came looking for them. The machines beeped steadily, measuring a heartbeat that was rewriting Tae-jun's entire existence with each pulse. 2 sons. The words felt foreign and familiar all at once, like a language he'd once known but forgotten. Where are they right now? Tae-jun asked quietly. Safe house. Different district. They don't even know I'm here. Emily's voice softened. I told them I was going to the market. Minho asked me to bring back honey butter chips. Junho wanted banana milk. She smiled, fragile as glass. Stupid, normal things. Because I've spent 9 years trying to give them a normal childhood, while your father's men tracked us like criminals. Tae-jun looked at his father. Really looked at him. If she's lying, a DNA test proves it conclusively. If she's telling the truth, he let the implication settle. Either way, we need to know. The chairman's jaw tightened. For the first time in Taijun's life, his father looked cornered. Fine, the chairman said finally. We'll do the test. And when it proves this woman is a fraud, she'll face consequences for harassment and extortion. And when it proves I'm telling the truth? Emily's voice was steady now. What then? Taejun answered before his father could. Then everything changes. He didn't just mean the paternity. He meant the lies, the 9 stolen years, the medical reports that had shaped his entire adult life. If Emily was telling the truth, and something deep in his gut said she was, then his father had orchestrated the most intimate betrayal imaginable. I'll arrange for the test, the chairman said coldly. Medical team will be here within the hour. Until then, Miss Anna, you'll wait under security supervision. I'm not going anywhere, Emily said. She looked at Taijun, and in her eyes he saw a question that would haunt him. Will you choose them, or will you choose him? The door opened, and a nurse entered with medication. The moment fractured into mundane reality. Pills, water, vital signs. But underneath the ordinary medical routine, Taejun felt his world cracking open like an egg, revealing something raw and new and terrifying underneath. 2 sons, 9 years old, honey butter chips and banana milk. The Ice King had spent decades building walls around his heart, convincing himself that being untouchable meant being strong. But sitting in that hospital bed, looking at the photo of 2 boys with his eyes, Taejun realized something profound. He'd been living a life built on lies, and the truth, whatever it turned out to be, was about to cost him everything he thought he knew. If you were in Taejun's position, would you want to know the truth, even if it destroyed your relationship with your father? Drop your thoughts below. The medical team arrived exactly 53 minutes later, carrying sterile swabs and consent forms. Emily submitted to the cheek swab with steady hands. Taejun did the same, his mind still reeling. Results in 48 hours, the lead technician said. Expedited processing. 48 hours to discover if he was a father. 48 hours to learn if his entire adult life had been a carefully orchestrated lie. As the medical team left, Taejun looked at Emily and asked the only question that mattered. Tell me about them. My sons. Tell me everything. Emily's hands trembled as she sat in the chair his father had vacated. She looked at Taejun like she was seeing a ghost, or maybe like she was the ghost, finally visible after years of haunting the margins of his life. Where do I even start? Her voice was barely a whisper. The beginning. Taejun's chest ached, but the morphine couldn't touch the pain spreading through him now. Start with the moment you found out you were pregnant. She closed her eyes, and he watched 9 years of memory play across her face. I was terrified. I'd been fired, given enough money to disappear, and told in very clear terms that the Kwan family didn't want to see me again. Then 3 weeks later, I'm in a clinic bathroom staring at 2 pink lines, thinking my life is over. The security guard stood by the door, stone-faced sentinels. His father had left after the DNA test, citing urgent business. But Taejun knew better. The chairman was regrouping, preparing his next move. That's what powerful men did when their control started slipping. I almost did what he wanted, Emily continued, her voice breaking. Almost went through with the termination. I even made the appointment. But when I got there, I just couldn't. She looked up at him, and her eyes were raw. I kept thinking about that night in the garden. How broken you looked. How human. And I thought, maybe this child deserves to exist. Even if you never know. Even if I have to do it alone. Taejun's throat tightened. He'd spent 9 years perfecting emotional detachment, and now it was crumbling like sand. You said children. Plural. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. The ultrasound at 12 weeks. The technician kept moving the wand around, confused. Then she turned the screen toward me and said, "Congratulations, it's twins." I laughed so hard I cried. Of course it was twins. Of course, the one mistake I made would double itself. They're not a mistake. The words came out fiercer than Taijun intended. Emily studied him, searching for something. You didn't even know they existed 5 hours ago. You don't get to decide what they are yet. Fair enough. He'd earned that barb. Tell me more. What are they like? She pulled out her phone again, and this time the security guards didn't react. She scrolled through photos with the practiced ease of a mother who documented every moment. This is Minho. He's older by 4 minutes and never lets Junho forget it. Serious? Thoughtful? He taught himself to read at 4 because he was tired of waiting for me to finish bedtime stories. The photo showed a boy with Taijun's amber eyes, staring intensely at a book too advanced for his age. Something in Taijun's chest cracked open. And this is Junho. She swiped to another image. Complete opposite. Laughs at everything. Makes friends with strangers. He's the reason we've had to move so many times. He's too trusting, too visible. In a different life, he'd be a performer. An actor, maybe. Junho's smile was wide and unguarded, so different from the careful expressions Taijun had learned to wear. The boy looked happy, free. Everything Taijun had never been allowed to be. They know about me? Taijun asked. Emily's expression shuddered. They know their father exists. They know his name. They know he's powerful and dangerous, and that we have to stay hidden because of his family. She met his eyes. They don't know he never knew about them. I couldn't bring myself to tell them that. It felt kinder to let them believe you made a choice. The words hit like a blade between his ribs. You let them think I abandoned you. I let them think you chose your world over ours, which, until 5 hours ago, was functionally true. Her voice hardened. Don't look at me like that. I did what I had to do. Every birthday when Yunho asked why his father never came, every school event where Minho watched other kids with their dads, I gave them an explanation that made sense. He's from a different world. He can't be part of ours. It was the kindest lie I had. Taijun thought about his own childhood. The expectations. The constant measuring against impossible standards. The way his father had molded him into a weapon instead of raising him as a son. Maybe it wasn't a lie. Maybe you protected them from something worse than absence. Don't. Emily's voice cracked. Don't try to make yourself the martyr here. You don't get to rewrite the story before you've even lived one page of it. The machines beeped steadily, marking time Taijun couldn't get back. 9 years, 3,285 days of their lives he'd missed. First words, first steps, first days of school, all gone, buried under a lie his father may have told. The medical reports, Taijun said slowly, if they were falsified, my father went to extraordinary lengths. Multiple doctors, genetic testing, hormone panels. That level of deception requires resources and coordination. Your father has both. Emily's tone was matter-of-fact. I've spent 9 years learning exactly how powerful the Kwan family is. Every time I thought I'd escaped, his people found me. New city, new name, new life. Didn't matter. He has connections everywhere. Police, immigration, banks. It's like trying to hide from God. Taijun's mind was racing through possibilities, each more damning than the last. Why go through all this trouble? If he wanted to control succession, there are simpler ways. Are there? Emily leaned forward. Think about it. If he'd just passed you over for your brother, you'd have fought back, challenged him. You're too proud, too capable. But if you believed you were fundamentally broken, if you internalized that you weren't worthy, she shook her head. That's not control. That's psychological warfare. The truth of her words settled like poison in his gut. His father hadn't just lied about medical results. He'd reconstructed Taijun's entire self-image. Every relationship he'd avoided. Every emotional wall he'd built. Every time he told himself the Ice King didn't need connection or legacy. All of it based on a lie designed to keep him compliant. He told me today I'd transition to an advisory role, Taejun said quietly, that my brother would take over active operations. Emily's expression softened with something like pity, and you would have accepted it, Because you believed you had no choice, no heir, no future, just an expiration date on your usefulness. Have you ever discovered a lie that changed everything you thought you knew about yourself? Share below. The door opened and one of the security guards stepped inside. Chairman Kwan is on his way back. He wants Miss Anna removed from the premises before he arrives. No. Taejun's voice carried the weight of decades of authority. She stays. The guard hesitated. Sir, your father was very clear. I don't care what my father wants. She stays until we have the DNA results. Is that understood? The guard nodded and retreated, but Taejun knew this was only a temporary reprieve. His father would push back. The chairman always pushed back when his control was questioned. Emily watched the exchange with wide eyes. You just defied him, directly. First time for everything. He won't like it. I'm sure he won't. Taejun looked at her, really looked at her. This woman had carried his children, raised them alone, survived 9 years of harassment and fear. Why did you come here today? After all this time, why now? Her composure finally cracked completely. Tears streamed down her face as she pulled out her phone one more time. Because yesterday, one of your father's men approached Junho outside his school, told him he looked just like someone important, asked him questions about his mother, about where we live. Her voice broke. My 9-year-old son came home terrified, asking if the bad men were going to take him away. And I realized, running isn't working anymore. Your father's closing in. If I don't stop this now, I'll lose them. So I came to the one person who might actually have the power to make him stop. She looked at him with desperate hope. You! 48 hours felt like 48 years. Taejun spent the first day drifting in and out of consciousness, his body fighting the infection that came with bullet wounds. But even through the fever, one image burned clear. 2 boys with his eyes, existing somewhere in Seoul, without knowing their father was finally aware of them. Emily had been moved to a guest suite in the hospital. Not quite a prisoner, not quite a guest. His father's compromise. The chairman had returned that first evening with lawyers and documents, prepared to discredit her before the DNA results even arrived. But Taejun had done something he'd never done before. He'd ordered his father out of his room. The shock on the chairman's face had been worth every spike of pain in his chest. Now, on the second day, Taejun sat upright in bed despite doctor's orders, watching the door. The results were due any moment. His entire life balanced on whatever those papers would say. His phone buzzed. A message from his brother. Father says you're making a mistake. That woman is playing you. Taejun deleted it without responding. His brother had always been his father's son. Obedient, traditional, safe. Everything Taejun had tried to be until a medical report had freed him from that particular prison. Except the report had been a lie. Maybe. Probably. The door opened. Emily entered first, her face pale but determined. Behind her came Dr. Kim, the independent geneticist Taejun had insisted on, someone outside his father's influence. And finally, reluctantly, came the chairman himself. The results, Dr. Kim said, holding a manila envelope that contained the truth. His hands didn't shake, but Taejun's did. Just tell me. Taejun's voice was rough. No preamble, yes or no. Dr. Kim opened the envelope with clinical efficiency. The DNA analysis confirms with 99.9% certainty that you are the biological father of both Kwon Minho and Kwon Junho. The room stopped breathing. Emily's knees buckled. She caught herself on the chair, a sob breaking from her throat, 9 years of fear and vindication collapsing into one sound. Taejun felt something crack open in his chest, something that had nothing to do with bullets. Father. He was a father. For 9 years, he'd been a father without knowing, and the weight of that stolen time crushed down on him like gravity itself. He turned to his father. The chairman stood frozen, his perfect composure finally, beautifully shattered. Explain. Taejun's voice was ice, pure ice. The Ice King in his truest form. Explain to me how I'm the biological father of 9-year-old twins, when you told me I was sterile." His father's jaw tightened. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, the original diagnosis was exaggerated. Exaggerated. Taejun repeated the word like it was a foreign language. "You destroyed my entire adult life over an exaggeration? I did what was necessary for the family." The chairman's voice regained some of its steel. "You were reckless at 28, emotional, too much like your mother. You needed tempering, purpose. The diagnosis gave you that, made you focus on business instead of sentiment." Emily stood, fury radiating from her small frame. "You ruined lives because you wanted control. You chased me across Seoul for 9 years, terrorized my children, destroyed every chance I had at stability. Because of your need for control, I protected the family legacy," the chairman said coldly. "You were a complication, a maid who seduced my son." "I didn't seduce anyone," Emily's voice cracked. "He was drunk and hurting and human for 5 seconds, and I made a mistake. But those boys aren't mistakes. They're your grandsons, and you've spent their entire lives trying to erase them." Taejun watched his father, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. This man had orchestrated everything: the false diagnosis, Emily's harassment, 9 years of psychological manipulation, all to maintain control over a son who dared to be vulnerable once. "Get out!" Taejun's words were quiet but absolute. His father blinked. "Excuse me?" "Get out of my room, out of this hospital, out of my life." Taejun's voice grew stronger with each word. "You're done. No more advisory roles, no more transitions. I'm taking full control of the Seoul operations, and you're retiring. Effective immediately." The chairman's face darkened. "You can't." "I can. I will." Taejun leaned forward despite the pain screaming through his chest. "You taught me everything about power, father. Every manipulation, every pressure point, every way to destroy someone from the inside out. Did you really think I wouldn't eventually use those lessons?" Something flickered in his father's eyes. Fear, maybe? Or recognition. "The board will never support you," the chairman said. "Not over me." "Won't they?" Taejun smiled, cold and sharp. "I have 9 years of financial records showing I've tripled revenue. I have loyalty from every crew in Seoul. And now I have something you never gave me, a legacy. 2 sons who will inherit everything I build." He paused. "What do you have, father? A reputation built on lies, and a son who finally sees through them?" The silence stretched taut as wire. Finally, the chairman straightened his suit jacket with precise movements. "This isn't over." "Yes," Taejun said quietly. "It is." His father left without another word, the door closing with a soft click that sounded like an ending. Emily collapsed into the chair, shaking. "What just happened?" "A coup?" Taejun said. "I just took everything from the most powerful man I know." He looked at her, really looked at her. "And I did it for 2 boys I've never met." She wiped tears from her face. "They're at the safe house, still waiting for me to come home with honey butter chips and banana milk." Taejun's chest tightened. "Tell me how to meet them. Tell me what to say." "I don't know." Emily's honesty was brutal. "They've spent 9 years believing their father didn't want them. You can't fix that in one conversation." "No," Taejun agreed, "but I can spend the rest of my life trying." If you had missed 9 years of your children's lives, how would you begin to build that relationship? Share your thoughts below. Emily stood, exhaustion and hope warring on her face. "There's something you need to understand. If you do this, if you meet them, claim them, bring them into your world, there's no going back. Your enemies will know about them. They'll become targets, just like you." Taejun had already thought about this. His world was violence and power and constant threat. Bringing his sons into it meant painting targets on their backs. But leaving them outside, it meant abandoning them again. Different reason, same result. "Then I'll make my world safer," he said, "starting with removing threats, starting with anyone who's ever hurt you or them." Emily studied him for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. "Minho, Junho, Mommy's coming home. And I'm bringing someone with me, someone important, someone who wants very much to meet you." She paused, listening. Then, "Yes, baby, him, your father." Through the phone, Tae-jun heard a child's voice, high, uncertain, afraid to hope. "Really? He's really coming?" "Really," Emily whispered, looking at Tae-jun. "He's really coming." She ended the call and turned to him. "They're scared, excited, confused, everything at once." "So am I," Tae-jun admitted. "The Ice King, terrified of two 9-year-old boys." "Good." Emily's smile was fragile, but real. "That means you understand what's at stake. Everything." That's what was at stake. His entire life, rebuilt on truth instead of lies. "When?" he asked. "Tomorrow, after the doctors clear you for discharge. I'll bring them here, neutral ground." She hesitated. "Tae-jun, they're going to test you, push boundaries, Minho especially. He spent 9 years being angry at a father he never met. Don't expect instant forgiveness." "I don't expect anything," Tae-jun said quietly, "except the chance to try." Part 5. Act 5. Resolution. The next morning arrived with the kind of clarity that follows storms, bright, sharp, and impossibly real. Tae-jun had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those amber eyes staring back at him from Emily's phone. His son's. The words still felt foreign, like a language he was learning to speak. He'd faced down rivals, survived assassination attempts, built an empire on calculated violence. But the thought of meeting two 9-year-old boys terrified him more than any bullet. The doctors had cleared him for limited movement. His chest was still wrapped in bandages, each breath a reminder of how close he'd come to never knowing the truth. But pain was irrelevant now. He'd spent 9 years living a lie. A few bullet wounds seemed like a small price for reality. Emily arrived at 10 in the morning, alone. "They're downstairs," she said, her voice tight with tension. "In the private waiting room. I wanted to prepare you first." Tae-jun stood by the window, dressed in clothes his assistant had brought. Simple black shirt, tailored pants. Not the expensive suits he usually wore. Emily had suggested he look approachable, human. "The Ice King trying to melt. Minho's angry," Emily continued. "He barely spoke the whole drive here. Junho won't stop talking, but it's nervous chatter. They're both terrified you'll disappoint them." She met his eyes. "So am I." "Fair enough." Tae-jun's hands were steady, but his heart wasn't. "Tell me what they know about me." "The truth. That you're powerful. That you run organizations most people fear. That your world is dangerous," she paused. "And that until 2 days ago, you didn't know they existed. I told them about the medical reports, the lies, everything. They deserve the truth." Tae-jun nodded. "No more lies. Not ever again." "Junho asked if you're a bad person," Emily said softly. "I told him you're complicated, that bad and good aren't simple categories. Minho asked if you'll disappear again when things get difficult. I told him," her voice broke, "I told him I don't know, that you'll have to prove yourself. I will." The words were a vow. "Every day for the rest of my life, I'll prove myself." Emily studied him for a long moment, then pulled out her phone. "I'm bringing them up. Tae-jun, whatever happens in the next hour, remember they're children. They've been hurt. Be patient." She left, and Tae-jun was alone with his racing thoughts. He'd rehearsed 1,000 opening lines, discarded them all. What did you say to sons you'd missed 9 years of knowing? Sorry felt inadequate. Explanations felt like excuses. Maybe the truth was simpler. "I'm here now. I'm sorry I wasn't before. Let me try." The door opened. 2 boys entered holding Emily's hands, and Tae-jun's world tilted on its axis. They were smaller than he'd imagined, more real. Minho entered first. Serious expression, guarded eyes, shoulders squared like he was preparing for battle. He wore a simple t-shirt and jeans, but carried himself with a dignity that reminded Tae-jun of his own childhood. The weight of being the responsible one. Junho bounced in behind him, nervous energy radiating from every movement. His smile was uncertain but present, hope and fear fighting for dominance on his face. He wore a bright yellow hoodie that seemed to capture his personality. Warm, visible, unafraid to stand out. Both had her skin tone, her features softened in youth. But those eyes, God, those eyes were undeniably his. Boys, Emily said gently, this is Kwon Tae-jun, Minho interrupted, his voice flat. We know. We Googled you. There are articles, lots of them. Tae-jun's lips quirked. Of course they'd researched him. Smart kids. What did the articles say? That you're dangerous, Minho said bluntly. That people are scared of you. That you run the soul underworld with an iron fist and frozen heart. He was quoting directly, testing. Is that true? No lies. Tae-jun had promised himself, yes, I've done things I'm not proud of, hurt people, made choices that served power instead of people. He knelt slowly, ignoring the pain in his chest, bringing himself to their eye level. But I've never had a reason to be better. Until now. Junho stepped forward, curiosity overcoming fear. Mom says you didn't know about us, that your dad lied to you. He did. That's really mean, Junho said seriously. Lying to your kid is the meanest thing. Mom never lies to us. Even when the truth is scary. Tae-jun glanced at Emily, who looked near tears. Your mom is braver than anyone I've ever met. Raising you alone, protecting you, that takes more strength than anything I've ever done. Minho's expression didn't soften. So what now? You show up, say sorry, and everything's supposed to be okay? You're our dad now, and we're supposed to just accept it? The anger was expected, but it still cut deep. No, I don't expect anything to be okay. I expect this to be hard and complicated and maybe impossible. Tae-jun's voice was steady, but I'm asking for the chance to try, not to replace the 9 years I missed. I can't do that. Just to be here for the years ahead. What if you get bored? Minho's voice cracked, revealing the child beneath the anger. What if we're not interesting enough or important enough? What if you decide your other life is better? Tae-jun understood then. This wasn't just anger. It was terror. The fear of abandonment so deep, it had calcified into protective rage. He'd felt the same thing every time his father had looked at him with disappointment. I won't lie to you, Tae-jun said quietly. My life is complicated. There will be times when I have to make difficult choices. But here's what I promise. You will always matter. Always. Not because you're convenient or easy, but because you're mine. My son's. And I've spent 9 years not knowing that was the only thing that mattered. Junho moved closer, reaching out to touch the bandages visible at Tae-jun's collar. Mom says someone tried to kill you. Does that happen a lot? More than I'd like. Will they try to kill us too? Junho's question was innocent, practical. Since we're your kids now? Emily tensed, but Tae-jun answered honestly. Some people might try, which is why I'm changing things, making my world safer. For you, Minho scoffed. You can't change the whole world. Watch me. Tae-jun's smile was sharp. I'm very good at getting what I want. And what I want is for you two to grow up safe, happy, and never wondering if your father cares. What would you want your father to say if he'd been absent your whole life? Let us know below. Silence settled over the room. Junho looked at his brother, some silent communication passing between them. Then Junho turned back to Tae-jun. What's your favorite color? Junho asked suddenly. The question was so unexpected, so childishly normal, that Tae-jun almost laughed. I don't know. I've never thought about it. That's sad, Junho said seriously. Everyone should have a favorite color. Mine's yellow. Minho's is blue. Mom's is green. Then I'll figure mine out, Tae-jun promised. And I'll let you know. Minho was still guarded. But something shifted in his expression. We like soccer and gaming, and Minho reads like 1,000,000 books. I read fast, Minho corrected. There's a difference. Do you like anything? Junho asked. Besides, crime stuff? Tae-jun realized he had no answer. His entire life had been business, strategy, survival. No hobbies, no interests beyond power. How empty that sounded when a 9-year-old asked about it. I'll have to discover that too, he admitted. Maybe you can help me figure it out. Emily spoke for the first time since the boys entered. Junho, show him the drawing. Junho pulled a folded paper from his pocket, shy suddenly. I drew this last night, after Mom told us you were real and coming to meet us. He unfolded it carefully. The drawing was in crayon, 4 stick figures holding hands. One labeled Mom, 2 smaller ones labeled me and Minho, and one taller figure with a question mark above its head. I didn't know what you looked like, Junho explained, so I left it blank. I figured I'd fill it in after I met you. Taejun's throat tightened. This simple crayon drawing, 4 figures, 1 family, held more value than his entire empire. Can I keep this? His voice was rough. Junho nodded eagerly. But I have to finish it first. Now that I know what you look like, he pulled out a yellow crayon and carefully began adding features to the blank figure. Dark hair, amber eyes, the same serious expression Taejun knew he wore. The boy's tongue stuck out in concentration. His entire world narrowed to getting the details right. When he finished, he held it up proudly. 4 figures. Complete. A family. There, Junho said. Now it's done. Minho looked at the drawing, then at Taejun. His anger hadn't disappeared, but something else flickered there. Possibility, maybe? Or the dangerous beginning of hope. We're not calling you Dad, Minho said firmly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You have to earn that. Fair. And if you hurt Mom, or disappear, or turn out to be like Grandfather, I won't. Taejun met Minho's eyes, amber to amber. Your grandfather built his power on lies and control. I'm going to build mine on truth, starting with you two. Emily moved beside them, completing the circle. This doesn't fix everything. We still have logistics. Where we'll live, how we'll navigate your world, what school they'll attend. The chairman won't accept this quietly. You'll have enemies who'll see them as weaknesses. Let them try. Taejun's voice carried the edge that had earned him his reputation. Anyone who touches my family will learn exactly why they call me the Ice King. Junho tugged on his sleeve. Can we get honey butter chips now? Mom promised yesterday, but then we came here instead. The mundane request after such emotional intensity made Taejun laugh. Actually laugh. Something he hadn't done in years. Yes, honey butter, chips and banana milk. Whatever you want. Whatever we want? Minho's eyebrow raised, skeptical but intrigued. That's a dangerous promise. I'm a dangerous man, Taejun said. Might as well put it to good use. 3 months later, the apartment Emily had chosen was in a secure building in Gangnam. High floor, excellent security, close to a good international school. Not as opulent as the Kwon family estate, but warm in ways that place had never been. Junho's yellow drawings covered the refrigerator. Minho's books overflowed from shelves. Emily's touches were everywhere. Plants, soft blankets, the smell of home-cooked meals. Taejun visited 3 times a week, slowly building bridges that 9 years had burned. Some visits were awkward, some were breakthroughs. Minho was still guarded, testing every promise, waiting for inevitable disappointment. But Junho had adopted Taejun with the wholehearted enthusiasm children possessed before the world taught them caution. Tonight was movie night, their new tradition. Junho had chosen an animated film about dragons. Minho had rolled his eyes but settled onto the couch anyway. Emily made popcorn while Taejun attempted to figure out the streaming service, his technical incompetence making Junho giggle. You really don't know how to work a TV? Junho asked, delighted. I've had people to do this for me, Taejun admitted. I'm learning. You're really bad at it, Minho observed. But there was a hint of a smile. Progress. Small, incremental, precious progress. Later, after the movie, after Junho had fallen asleep against Taejun's shoulder, and Minho had disappeared to his room with a new book, Emily sat beside him in the quiet. You're doing better than I expected, she said softly. I'm failing constantly. Yes, but you keep showing up. That's what matters. She looked at Junho's sleeping face, peaceful and trusting. They're starting to believe you'll stay. I will. Tae-jun carefully adjusted Jun-ho so he wouldn't wake. I've restructured the entire organization, delegated dangerous operations, built safety protocols. My father tried to stage a comeback. I heard. Emily's voice was dry. I also heard you crushed it in 48 hours. He underestimated how much loyalty I'd built, and how motivated I am to protect what's mine. Tae-jun looked at her. I'm not the same man I was 3 months ago. No, Emily agreed. You're not. You're learning to be human. It's terrifying to watch. It's terrifying to experience. She smiled, then grew serious. Minho asked me yesterday if you'll still come around when it stops being new and exciting, when it's just boring routine. What did you tell him? That time will answer that better than I can. She met his eyes. Will it? Will you still show up for movie nights and parent-teacher conferences and scraped knees when the novelty wears off? Tae-jun looked at Jun-ho sleeping against his shoulder, at the drawings on the refrigerator, at the life he was building one awkward conversation at a time. The Ice King spent 9 years believing he was broken, that he'd never have this. Now that I know I can... He paused, finding the right words. I'm not letting go, not for novelty, not for convenience, not for anything. Emily's eyes shimmered. Good, because they need you. And maybe... She hesitated. Maybe I do too. Something shifted between them. Not romance exactly, but partnership. The tentative building of trust between two people who'd made a mistake that became the best thing in both their lives. Minho appeared in the doorway, book in hand. Can you help me with something? Tae-jun looked up, surprised. Minho rarely asked for help. There's a word I don't understand. In this chapter about family legacies, Tae-jun carefully moved Jun-ho to the couch cushion and went to his oldest son. Minho showed him the page, but Tae-jun suspected this wasn't really about vocabulary. This was a test, another brick in the bridge they were building. Legacy means what you leave behind, Tae-jun explained. What people remember about you after you're gone. Minho considered this. What do you want your legacy to be? The question held weight. Minho was asking, who are you really? What matters to you? Tae-jun looked at his son, really looked at him, and answered with complete honesty. You and your brother. Everything else I've built will crumble eventually. But you two? You'll carry forward the best parts of me and leave behind the worst. That's the only legacy that matters. Minho studied him for a long moment. Then, so quietly, Tae-jun almost missed it. Okay, just one word. But in it, Tae-jun heard acceptance. Not complete, not unconditional, but real. Okay, Tae-jun echoed. Minho returned to his room, and Emily appeared beside Tae-jun. He's starting to trust you. I know. Don't break it. I won't. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Jun-ho sleep, listening to Minho turn pages in his room. This was his life now, not perfect, not simple, but real, built on truth instead of lies, on presence instead of absence. The Ice King had melted, and in his place stood a father, learning daily that strength wasn't about emotional detachment. It was about showing up, staying present, and choosing love over power. His phone buzzed. Business, always business. But for the first time in his life, Tae-jun silenced it. Tonight wasn't about empires or power. Tonight was about honey butter chips and dragon movies and two boys who were teaching him how to be human. Outside the window, Seoul glittered with its million lights. Taejun City, his territory, his empire. But inside this apartment, in this moment, his real kingdom existed. 2 9-year-old boys and a woman who'd given him a truth worth more than any lie. He'd spent 9 years as the impotent king, believing himself broken. Now he knew the truth. He'd never been broken, just incomplete. And his sons, these fierce, funny, complicated boys, were the pieces he hadn't known he was missing. Dad? Junho's sleepy voice came from the couch. Will you stay until we fall asleep? Taejun's heart cracked open one more time. Dad. Junho had called him Dad. Yes, Taejun said, his voice rough with emotion. I'll stay, And he did. Sometimes the truth we've been running from is the only thing that can set us free. Taejun lost 9 years to a lie but found his entire life in the truth. What lies are you ready to face? What truths are waiting to transform you? Share your story in the comments. Your courage might inspire someone else to seek their own truth.